I can see you now.
Hi, Rich Wagner here. Norm wanted me to do this at some point if I ever was together with Charlie Brumfield and Dr. Bud Muehleisen. So I'm going to just do a quick interview with these two gentlemen, maybe 5 minutes. So my first question is, what does the PPA stand for?
Pacific Paddleball Association.
The Pacific Paddleball Association. I didn't know that. I used to play doubles with Charlie and Dr. Bud back in the old days. I think, did Marty Hogan play her?
No, but a short thing to add to that. The reason it was Paddleball Association started here in '69. Pardon me, '66.
66.
Paddleball. 3 years later, racquetball came along. But we never changed the name of this. So both games are played there now, but mostly paddleball again.
Yeah, mostly paddleball again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Charlie, a question for you. How did you and Dr. Bud meet?
Well, Dr. Bud was the reigning national paddleball champion, and I did not know that. I knew that there was a tournament that was scheduled down at the G.O.A.T Club, which is a prominent, actually it was a gangster hangout. And it was, Dr. Bud had played tennis there and also had played paddleball there. They had 2 courts. Mm-hmm. And the tournament, I was at the San Carlos Club, which was about 20 miles away. Mm-hmm. And I heard about the tournament, and I'd been playing paddleball about probably 5 months. And I wanted to see what it was like playing with the top guys, so I went down and played in the tournament, and Dr. Bud and I met in the finals. He won the tournament, but was gracious enough to invite me to start playing with him on a regular basis at very early in the morning.
So how old were you when he beat you that first tournament?
I would say 17 or 16.
So he was just a kid, just a child, just a young man, and Dr. Bud was probably in your 30s maybe, or?
Born in '31, so in '67 I was
35, 36?
36,
36,
yeah.
The tournament was in '64.
Oh, the tournament was?
The one at the G.O.A.T Club was in '64, so you were probably 32 or 3.
Yeah, I didn't know that we had the PPA yet. Oh, we didn't have the PPA yet.
No, 66, yeah.
Yeah.
So you started playing pro racquetball in what year?
I started playing pro racquetball in '73 or '74 when the Pro Tour was formed. I was the inaugural signer, if I recall correctly, of a contract to be in the pros, and you were an up-and-coming superstar, and I think you played in '74 as well, did you not?
Take note, superstar.
Yeah.
Kidding.
I said that's when I started playing. In
Shannon
74.
Wright, by the way, Dr. Shannon Wright, who was the #1 women's racquetball player back in the 70s.
Late 70s, early 80s.
Late 70s, early 80s, is the videographer of this interview right now.
There you go. My claim to
pro
fame.
champion.
4-year national champion. Yeah, I remember. And who was some of your competition?
Well, first of all, it was Peggy Stedding.
Peggy Stedding.
And then I took what? Oh, that's okay. So it was first of all Peggy Stedding, and then I took over the reign after her, and then Lynn Adams and Heather Mackay were coming up and coming, and so the 3 of us traded off for quite a while, and then Lynn ended up dominating, and in I think it was '82. Lynn and I played in the Nationals in Colorado Springs, and it was a 3 out of 5 match game. And we were so dead even after 4 games. We had to flip a coin to see who would serve. And it went 15-14 in the 5th. And we were playing a silly way where you could score on the handout or the serve. And so I was serving, and I hit this beautiful drive serve right in the back wall corner. And it looked like it was going to hit the crack. And it barely touched the sidewall, and it jammed her, and she went like this and pooched it, and it rolled out in the left front corner. And I lost a 3-hour and 20-minute finals by 1 point. And I walked off the court and said, okay, we're going back to school.
And so you went back to school, and now you're a doctor of...
MD, PhD, and I got my undergraduate in biochemistry at UNLV, and then I went to University of Minnesota for an MD and a PhD in neuroscience. And then, in about 2009, I started the United States Racquetball Foundation, and that's how Dr. Bud and I kind of got together, because he was an ambassador for our foundation, and it was when we had Charlie's big farewell, and he's still around, but we at the U.S. Open, yeah, and so it's kind of fun how it all kind of comes around, and we all know each other for 40 years. Okay, here.
Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah, thank you, Rich.
Now, just real quick, I'm not a professional interviewer. I'm doing the best I can here.
Take your hat.
And well, I got one here.
Oh,
So anyway, I'm going to ask a few more questions. I want to talk about Carl Loveday. Both of you gentlemen knew Carl Loveday. He coached me when I moved out to San Diego. So how did that whole relationship start? Dr. Bud, how did you meet?
I'll start it because I really met him first.
Yeah.
I knew Carl through badminton. We both played badminton. Carl was a great badminton player. At one time, he was ranked second in the United States. And the same year, I was ranked 8th in badminton. And we loved badminton. We played. Carl has a great reputation in badminton, which was dominated by Dr.
Dave
Freeman. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, Carl and I had played badminton, and then Carl said, you ought to come down and try racquetball. He was playing it at the downtown Y. So I went down there, and basically that's how I met Carl. And we played a number of times. We played racquetball together down there. And then later, the game got going, and we built the PBA. And Carl was one of the charter members. And he was always there, coached everybody, actually. And he was a great coach for me. And we used to say you learn the ABCs of racquetball from Carl, because it was always believe Carl,
Always believe
ABC.
Carl, that's right.
And of course, Brum was there, and then he helped Brum. He helped everybody.
Yeah.
He was a wonderful guy.
So how does it go? Loveday begat Muehleisen. What's that saying?
Well, kind of, but yeah, that's true.
Loveday
Charlie
begat
and I-
Muehleisen, begat Brumfield.
Yeah.
And who was begat after Brumfield? Hogan?
I think you didn't. Anybody?
Yeah, I think it
right?
was.
Hogan, probably.
Yeah.
I have just a couple more questions. So health-wise, if you don't mind talking about a little bit of health stuff, let's go with you, Charlie. You had a diagnosis of cancer of some form a few years back.
Yes.
I know all of us went to Minneapolis, Minnesota for it was the national championships, but it was also a Legends event and an honoring for Charlie, because I think at the time you had a year to live or something.
Yeah.
So what's happened since?
And that was in 2013.
That was 2013, 7
Right.
years ago.
Yep.
Well, the kind of cancer I have is called prostate cancer, and it's one of the slower varieties, but when the testing was being done, I was in a category of prostate cancer which was the most aggressive. And so that's why they had given me so little time. If you really want to know when you're going to pass away, you need to go try to sell your life insurance policy to the buzzards that are above your head, and I was able to accomplish
Good
that.
job. You always accomplish
That,
it.
exactly, and they'll tell you what day it's going to be, because they have to pay if you don't pass away at that particular moment. It's actually exciting to see how long it goes, but I've been feeling reasonably well. I have the help from the whole racquetball and paddleball community, and have really enjoyed. You get a different perspective on life when you get a diagnosis of that kind, and I think it's helped me in the long run enjoy the last 5 years or even longer.
So you're able to do everything? I mean, you still play paddleball, golf, pickleball, or...
I can still play paddleball, and I can still play golf. And as a matter of fact, I have completely re-engineered my paddleball game to fit what I can do and yet still play effectively against much younger players.
Okay, good. Dr. Bud, you had some stuff go on?
Yeah, well, as you get older, I'm 89 next month,
Yeah.
and
how are you
but I've
feeling
been
today?
blessed with good health.
Yeah.
I really have. I've got a little peripheral neuritis, but I'm fine. I've been in really good health. I've kept my weight way down, and I feel wonderful. I haven't been sick.
Good.
Well,
Why
except
don't
a
you
year
tell
and a
him
half
about-
ago. Except a year and a half ago, you had a stroke, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
A minor thing.
Yeah, minor thing here. Look at that man.
I call it a minor thing, but living with a doctor, she took good care of me.
Oh yeah, that's good stuff.
I think it would be interesting for Shannon and Dr. Bud to discuss their adventures into diet. They've been here in San Diego for a month
45 days.
in a very, very technical and Shannon, can you give us the...
Let me
Sure,
say
let's-
something first.
Here, let him say something
Yeah.
first.
Let me tell one story about Loveday, which nobody's ever heard.
Okay.
I don't think they have. Then we'll talk about that. But Carl and I got playing together, and we built the PPA, and we got better, and so we got the idea. Why don't we go play in the nationals? So we went, and we entered. I had turned 35, and so I was eligible for the 35 and over, and Carl was 11 years older than me, so he would have been 48 at the time, and we played in the 35 and over in doubles. The reason that's all we could play was they would only allow you to play one event, and so we both go, and so we played in the doubles together. It was held in Michigan at the university, which is Ann Arbor, and they put us up in the dorms. The courts were 4 blocks away, and it was snowing. It was 3 degrees the whole time we were there. So I would go over and watch the matches, and then when we finally played, I'd go get Carl, because Carl came down with a severe flu. He had the flu, and he was in bed, and he had a temperature and everything else. And so he'd get up out of his bed, and we'd walk over and play a match and win, and then he'd go back home. And this went on for about 5 rounds. And lo and behold, we got in the finals, and we won the tournament. And so that was a fun deal, because we were at the hub of where paddleball started, because the intramural director at the university was Earl Risky, and he is given the credit for starting paddleball on the old handball courts, and they were there at the place. And so that was my first tournament, and it was with Carl, and at a monumental place, and Earl Risky was a fine gentleman. I thought they might be interesting.
That's a
I
great
don't know if
story.
you've heard that story.
I had not heard that, but
Yeah.
I knew that you had won the nationals in doubles with
Yeah.
Carl. I didn't realize that he
Yeah.
had been sick.
He was very sick. He had flu the whole time. And then he'd go back and go to bed. And we have to walk in the cold after showering and everything. It was just horrible.
I have one quick Carl Loveday story.
Yeah, yeah.
Carl coached me for a couple of years, and Dr. Bud indicated he was the #2 ranked badminton player in the United States. Carl took me to a place, and I think Charlie too, of Muni, it was called, in San Diego. They had 20 badminton courts. Carl would toy with me for training purposes. If I scored a point, I think he let me score. He would beat me 15-0 every time. He was a great badminton player, and this was when he was an old man, and I'm like, one of the top 8 players in the world in racquetball, and he's toying with me like I was just some kid out there. So
That's amazing.
anyway, I have just one more question, Charlie. You are considered, I think, the greatest of all time for your era.
A goat for paddle.
A GOAT, they call it a GOAT, greatest of all time. So today,
Paddleball.
well, paddleball
racquetball.
and racquetball.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Both.
won how many national racquetball championships?
The way they have calculated it out in just the open division. I had 4 or 5 doubles national titles and 5 singles titles, and a couple of titles in paddleball in both doubles and
Right.
singles.
And you're the one player, or no, there's how many players that have won all 3 nationals, outdoor, indoor, and paddleball? I know you're one of them. And Dr. Bud won all 3 also. Okay, I didn't know that. And I think Marty Hogan might have been the other one who won that. Is that correct, maybe?
I don't know.
Marty Hogan is my understanding that he won the singles. I don't recall whether he won the doubles or not outdoors.
Okay.
But of course, he was he was one of the top athletes I've ever seen, and he was just a fine player, whatever sport he decided to pay attention to that week. He's good.
So, greatest of all time, Kane, Hogan, Swain, you, or is it just based on era, what era
Well,
you're
you
playing?
really can't judge that
Right.
unless you talk. Kane never played small racket. We never played big racket. In other words, the racquetball racket's gotten bigger, the game's faster, bigger head, and a faster ball. So it's really 2 different games.
I agree with
so,
that.
so the era and the equipment make all the
Because when
difference.
when the other game came along, Charlie and I retired from it, and Kane just started in and playing. But Kane is a great player.
I've seen him play
He
a couple of
dominates.
times.
Very limited competition.
Yeah. He's
Very
what,
limited.
10, 12-time national champion?
13.
Oh,
13 is it?
13
Wow,
or
okay.
15
No,
at
it's
the
13.
U.S. Open.
So we'll just leave it that different eras have different greatest,
Yeah.
different goats.
Well, you have to give, in my opinion, when you see someone play for 10 years and not lose, and not lose a game for a year.
Is that Kane?
You know, yes. I mean, the guy's, but
He
I
dominates it.
will say this, that the former great players that were between Dr. Muehleisen and myself and Kane believe that there is a justiciable dispute because of their belief that the competition was at its peak when they were at the top of their games, and that's Sudsy Monchik and also Cliff Swain. Both of them are great players.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to. I don't think that I have seen enough to be able to make the call on how they would have done with the slow ball and it was a completely different game. And it was more punishing, and with the way the game was set up, there was a lot of gamesmanship that later was weaned out of the sport. So it was more technical power and what have you, and they can hit the ball harder than our generation could hit it. But I will say this, I don't think that I have ever seen anyone hit the ball like Hogan could hit when he was 18 years old. I mean, he was just a great striker of the ball.
And Marty did change the game to that
He
degree.
and there was a number of changes that occurred at the precise time where he was making his move toward number 1, and the ball and the glass court and the size of the rackets all helped him in that quest to be number 1. Now, I have heard, I forget whether it was Sudsy or Cliff, say that the general consensus is that the number 1 player of all time would be taken from those 3, Kane, Cliff, or Sudsy. And they never played Hogan when he was 18.
I can't believe that Hogan wouldn't be.
I can't believe that he wouldn't be a party to be
Wow,
discussed.
I did not know that. To me, Hogan changed the game, and I mean, 5-time national champion. Anyway, that's news to me. I didn't know that.
He was a great player, and one of the hardest shots I ever saw hit at any time during my career of watching her playing was when he ripped you in the back and you went down like a cheap suit.
You did not want to get hit by Hogan.
Oh my goodness.
I think that's good. I'm going to just sit in that middle there just so you could get a final shot of the three of us.
I think that that's a great idea.
And we'll end our interview like that. I've known
Perfect.
these gentlemen since 1974, and we had great times playing racquetball, and it was the sport. I mean, we were all going to be millionaires. We were all going to be big like tennis, and just the timing of when we were in that game was unbelievable. And Dr. Bud was a big influence on me, and I know he was a big influence on Charlie.
Of course.
So.
Why don't you explain to us what happened to your finger when you played me the last time?
You want me to put that story on video for all time? I'll do it.
No.
No or yes? Okay.
We've been going 20.
Should we do it, Shannon? It's a bad story.
Well,
It's a
go
good
ahead.
story.
End
Okay,
up on a
so
bad story.
We're very
It can be
competitive.
edited.
We're very competitive in the old days, and I'm playing Charlie Brumfield a practice match at the Atlas Health Club in San Diego. And we have differing stories here, but here's how the story went. Charlie hit me and broke his racket over my back. I grabbed him in a headlock and I threw him on the ground. He proceeded to bite my middle finger. I proceeded to have to go to see Dr. Chuck Hanna, who told me dog bites are bad, but nothing's worse than a Brumfield bite. And I had to get 4 stitches in my finger. This is just, we were crazy competitive, and I'm sure the players today are just as competitive, but
It's like somebody getting their ear bit off.
it's like somebody like a Holyfield Tyson deal, exactly. So anyway, I want to thank you, gentlemen, and Shannon, thank you for videoing this
Yeah,
here.
no problem. Okay, here we go. Turning it off.
All right, good.